Hello and welcome back to the DVD Bunker. I'm Brian. This is Matt.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
This show is where we look at my personal DVD collection. We try to focus in on movies that I don't remember too well or things that I really like that it seems like nobody else remembers. And our pick for today, Reign of Fire, I think falls squarely into that second category.
Oh yeah.
I got pretty fond memories of this. If anybody's not familiar, Reign of Fire is a 2002 movie with Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey about a future where dragons are the thing that wipe us out instead of a virus. I mean, it's a post-apocalypse, and hey, you got to get there somewhere, right?
That's the one I want to be a part of,
right,
for sure. Forget these diseases.
It's at least a cool-looking apocalypse because there's dragons flying around.
Oh, absolutely.
But and then Matthew McConaughey or Christian Bale runs a one of the last little populations of people hiding away.
Yep.
And McConaughey shows up with his band of dragon hunters, and nobody's ever seen anything like that before. And action movie ensues.
Yeah,
right?
It's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I'm putting my cards on the table. I feel like I'm going into this one pretty positive.
Oh yeah.
I enjoy this movie. I think I'm pretty aware of what it set out to be, so I don't hold it to too high of a standard. You know what I mean? I can enjoy a movie for what it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I feel about this one.
I'm the same way. I remember liking this movie a lot. I forget everything though, so this is why I love it, because I know that this is going to be awesome, because because it has two of my favorite things.
Two Oscar winners is what it has.
Christian Bale and
Matthew McConaughey. He's
oh
an
my
Oscar winner now
God.
too.
Well, I was going to say dragons and Matthew McConaughey, but Christian Bale's okay too.
Christian Bale,
But yeah, and I really am pumped because I remember liking this, but I don't remember why.
Right on.
Beyond those two things.
Did you come up with anything in your research about it?
Yeah. Okay. So this was a 2002, like you said. It was successful in the box office. It cost about $60 million to make. It made about $80 million. I didn't get any marketing numbers, so it's probably another break-even movie.
But $60 million is pretty good for
what they
big
did.
Action movie. Like that's pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Deadpool. That's what Deadpool cost to make. And
yeah.
Everybody was talking. I mean, obviously this didn't make that kind of money, but it was one of those things where even when it was coming out, they're like, "Well, we only spent $60 million on it."
Yeah.
So
it's a winner.
We're gonna get there, and that's probably how they felt about this one.
Yeah. And I think really what this movie was the marriage of two things, which is the post-apocalyptic world, which the creators really liked, and then they just decided to set out to make sort of the end-all dragon movie as far as the special effects go. And I think that these are the same guys that did Dragonheart, the Sean Connery vehicle. So they may have even been using some of the assets.
Hey,
but
I got nothing against Dragonheart. I
So,
got nothing against the Sean Connery voice dragon. That's pretty. I mean. Yeah, until that came out, that was kind of the high mark for dragon movies. Yeah, sort of. And
that was it. And the dragons are based on this bug called a bombardier beetle, which is a real bug in real life, which sort of just sprays like a stinking mist of like hydrogen peroxide at like any potential predators and things like that. So that bug was sort of one of the inspirations for these dragons.
Talk a little bit about the cast here, like we were talking before. Two now current Oscar winners. These guys have obviously gone on. 2002, both of them were kind of people that were known at the time, but neither of them, Matthew McConaughey was kind of floundering in like rom-coms and playing the handsome guy and things. Like he was in some serious movies, but he was always just like handsome lawyer, handsome businessman.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, a little bit, obviously, in the last couple of years, he's really like, he kind of broke out and showed people he could act. But, and I think this is, I might be stepping out of line because we haven't watched the movie again yet, but I feel like this is a little bit of a departure, and this time he's playing a much more rough and rugged character and a little bit crazier than we'd seen.
I think so, because to fight dragons, you kind of have to be
that. Right. I mean, and he had kind of gotten away from that. Like I said, at this point in his career is real kind of, I don't know, call it boring.
Yeah.
And so Christian Bale also starting to gain, was kind of coming into his own as an adult actor. He'd been a child actor, right? 2000 was American Psycho. That's his big adult breakout. Yeah. Also that year played the villain in the Shaft remake with Sam Jackson. He played basically evil white guy. That was basically his character.
Oh man, yeah. That's what I knew I loved him. I feel like in that Shaft movie, I was like, this guy's got chops, man.
Well, you knew he did a good job because you wanted to see Shaft beat the shit out of him.
Every scene you're like, oh, this guy, I hate him.
Shaft gets his hands on this guy, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, that's a win.
Yeah. And then it was a couple years after this that he got all that notoriety for doing The Machinist, where he
Oh
lost
yeah,
all the weight, and then right on the heels of The Machinist, he did Batman Begins. And obviously, The
that was
Ascent
big.
is well noted from
The only
there.
other
Yeah.
Thing that I was going to talk about was the director. Director's name is Rob Bowman.
Bowman,
I want to
yeah.
get that right. Rob Bowman.
Yeah.
Mostly a TV guy, would you say?
Yeah,
Like,
did some
mostly a
X
TV
Files,
guy.
right?
X Files, which I'm a huge X
Oh,
Files
yeah.
fan, and did the first X Files movie,
Uh-huh.
which I'm not in the as it stands alone fine in the what it is for the continuity. I don't really care for I don't really
Yeah,
care
that
for
part
it. As
wasn't
a
good.
fan of the show, I was kind of like, this is kind of a nothing movie. But when you watch the movie as a standalone, you're like, this is a decent action thriller kind of movie. It's fine.
And just to do a movie that is like in the canon of a TV show that's ongoing, I always thought that was pretty cool though. But it is difficult.
To do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think plus something that was so. I mean, that was like the height of its popularity.
Yeah,
too.
true,
This was
true.
before season 6 or something.
Yeah, it was,
so they were, like,
I think it was
really
4 to 5.
peaking,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but he also now, we praised the guy a little bit, but let's give him his due. He's got like some like legendarily bad movies on his resume too, including 1993's Airborne,
Oh
which is
man.
like a skateboarding movie.
Yeah, it's the movie that's responsible for the X Games in their current form.
I think that's safe to say. I think it's safe
So
to
thank
say.
you, Bowman.
And also Elektra, the follow-up to Ben Affleck's
the movie,
the well-loved Ben Affleck Daredevil. Everybody loved that movie. How did Elektra miss?
the movie we all wanted. We didn't
We're
deserve
begging
it, but
for-
we
we're all
got.
begging for it, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I remember just camping outside the theater for months.
What,
Oh, for
Elektra's coming
Elektra,
out? Thank
please.
goodness. Will there be more Evanescence songs in it? I can only hope.
Oh.
Hey kids, remember Evanescence?
They're still around, I
They're a
bet.
thing?
I bet they're
way.
around.
No way. So I think is there anything else you want to say before we get started?
No, I'm excited. Let's watch Matthew McConaughey fight dragons.
Yeah.
This is great.
This is going to be awesome, I think. All right, let's go.
See you soon.
All right, so we're back from watching Reign of Fire. We had a good time as always. We always have a good time
Yeah, it was a
watching
good
a movie
time,
together. We
for
always
sure.
have fun, I did not invite you to co-host this show because I'm like, I mean, I hate being around that guy, but whatever.
We're in the third act of our own movie where our bitter rivalry has turned to friendship for a greater good.
we
We're
made
not
it.
gonna bore you with the whole story. But
Yeah,
it's
we'll
been-
get a prequel out someday.
Yeah,
for
one
sure,
day.
for sure.
One day.
All right, so I guess we wanted to start out by just kind of going back over the plot now that it's a little fresher in our minds and just hitting some of the high points. We'll try not to get too bogged down in details, but I want to hit a few things. First thing was it starts out with the Christian Bale character as a child.
Yeah.
In what is maybe the least safe mine ever, where if you drill a new hole into a new cavern, you can just send a small boy with no equipment, not even a helmet. I mean, everybody is wearing helmets except him. He's in his school uniform.
He's just wearing normal
and
clothes.
you just send him into a hole, blind,
Yeah.
just a blind hole. You can't. The dude didn't even like throw a flare in ahead of him or anything.
Man.
So yeah, it starts out with Christian Bale, little Christian Bale down there.
He's down there. And I want to skip ahead, I guess, to which I thought that part was amazing when he wakes the dragon essentially down there.
Right.
They let him in this hole. They're like, we don't have an adult. Get inside the hole.
You're small. Go ahead
You're
in
good
there,
to
child.
go. So you can get sprayed with one of the juices of this dragon, which he discovers. He discovers a dragon, and then it proceeds to burn mankind. I think
and
at
of course
that point.
he has a Batman origin because it gets his mom. On the way
He
out.
watches his mom die very close to his face.
Right in his face. Right in his face. Now, can we talk about? I coined a term while we were watching. He's got the newt factor.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, the newt factor. So he's present at what we would consider like the origin moment of this monster movie, this post-apocalypse, but yet inexplicably survives. I mean, he's literally there the minute the biggest, baddest dragon awakes.
He is there.
And then he just lives on. You don't know how he gets out of there. That thing burns up everybody and everything.
Kills everything.
Yeah, so much like Newt in Aliens.
And somehow he just makes it out of there alive.
Right.
Everything around him dies. Everybody he knew that day died.
Right, but
except for him.
inexplicably he makes it out because he's the hero of the story.
And I want to push it forward by saying maybe this is why he grew up to create this society that essentially seems to worship children, and they're the most important thing.
That's
because
true.
The adults in the world that began this they didn't care about kids. They let them run around construction.
It's
You know, like
true.
at least 4 kids died at that construction site. They did not care.
They didn't, but now, and I agree, that's a great segue into our post-apocalypse world. So it
Yeah.
flashed forward to him as an adult, and they're setting up their world. And I think they do a good job. What you talked about, the kind of child, they're very centered on progressing the species. Like the most important thing in their world is to protect the kids. So they have all these contingencies in place for if a dragon shows up, and if there's, they take them down to this basement, and they have pipes that pipe down water and spray on them. They're practicing.
Yeah, they're always on.
That's kind of
yeah.
where we cut in to the present.
Yeah, and their
And-
game is survival.
Right.
And there's a pseudo-religious scene where he has these kids that they bow down like they're gonna do a prayer, but instead they just talk about what you do to survive dragons.
Right,
in a very,
right,
like,
which is-
child-friendly
that is-
way. That
exactly.
part is so good though.
Yeah,
It's,
but that is what your world would be about. Like we don't have time for like to argue about organized religion anymore. Surviving, and
Yeah.
so we're gonna that's what we teach kids, and that's like I said, I think like any sci-fi fantasy movie that's even worth its weight at all has to build a world, and this one does a pretty
Yeah,
decent job of
there's some
like
good
building
parts.
a world, little things that are like specific. So let's see from there. So we hit up our our checklist of post-apocalypse cliches. So then the Americans show up. Matthew McConaughey and his group show
Yeah.
up. Amazing entrance by McConaughey. McConaughey is so quotable in this whole movie. Like
Oh,
almost
yeah.
every word that comes out of his mouth is like an action movie cliche
Oh, it's
in its own way.
and he's so good at it. It's so great.
He's really great. So then these
Um,
guys, the McConaughey and his crew, are gonna show what they can do. So they're gonna do their first big dragon hunt now.
Yeah.
They get one. Now I love the way they hunt the dragon. I wish there was more of this in the movie. There's actually only one scene of this
Yeah,
in the
there's
movie.
only one.
And why is that? It's because they're supposed to be these amazing dragon hunters, yet they lose 3 people. In the only dragon hunt they managed to pull off in this movie, 3 people
Yeah,
die.
your average lifetime is 17 seconds.
That's what
is
they
what
say,
they say
17
coming
seconds.
down, which is ridiculous that people volunteer out of the crew
Yeah.
to join this guy.
Clearly, I think it pretty clearly that it's probably a budgetary issue with this movie. They only had the money to show this this kind of.
It's all
'cause
budgetary.
It's great.
Yeah.
Like the dragon hunting scene is so sweet. The way they got the guys, they triangulate, and then they're the guys in the flight suits, and the dragons coming in on them. The way the dragons following them through the clouds. All that is really
Yeah.
awesome. Like I would have much rather had another scene of that in the movie than some of the other stuff. I mean, the stuff we get is pretty cool. Like there's a lot of good stuff, dragon stuff in this movie, but
That's the
that's
main.
the standout scene
that's
as far
the
as I'm
main
concerned,
scene.
action-wise.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those people are invincible. They're shooting nets through clouds with no vision
line
of a
of sight.
dragon. Just a guy that they really know and trust, probably for a couple days since they
Right.
they recruited in together yesterday. So
Well, yeah.
he's like, shoot it, and they do take it down.
Now, here's the question I have. Would Bodhi from Point Break and his team of the ex-presidents be better equipped to take down these dragons based on the skydiving skills they showed in their movie?
I think so, because I think they're right up. You may have touched on what could be like a whole side thing where it's just Bodhi and Matthew McConaughey were old buddies.
Oh, I got
And that's where they kind of came up together.
Matthew McConaughey was pretty young when the dragon thing happened, so he was like the protege of Bodhi. He was
Yeah.
going to be the next Bodhi.
Oh
And he
man.
took that. I want to watch this.
Yeah,
movie.
because dragons don't care if
Spin
you're in
that off.
prison. They burn him out of prison. He survives with a ragtag group. Somehow meets up with McConaughey.
So in your
That's
world,
it.
Bodhi doesn't die in the end of Point Break.
He died. No, he
No,
survives.
He survives
They
the surfing,
arrest him.
and then they arrest him.
He goes to prison. Then the outbreak happens. Then he escapes. He runs into McConaughey. They join in together. He dies at the end of that movie.
So he trains McConaughey, and he dies. Is he one of the guys who dies on their trip from America over to the?
Yeah, like when he just
old
says like
Bodhi is the one who helped him plan the whole thing.
He's like, we flew 2,000 miles. We lost 133 men or something like
Bodhi
that.
is
Bodhi
among
was
those
he's
casualties.
number 133. He's the
He's
last
guy
Yeah,
who sacrificed himself to make sure they made that extra like.
yeah.
He's the one who made it so they could land.
And
Like
if-
something
yeah.
he did made it that final thing. So they could-
Absolutely. And if you look closely, the female lead, she has a picture, a tattoo of Bodhi on her arm that you only see
Ah,
twice
I
in the
wondered
movie.
that guy. I wondered.
Yeah.
I thought it was. Yeah. Okay.
No, it was definitely Bodhi.
It
So
was definitely
you
a Bodhi
are
tattoo.
correct.
Look closely.
So anyway, then they kill the dragon. Then we're like, oh, these guys really are dragon killers. So
Right.
we're gonna join their army.
Well,
That's when
they reveal their plan to that they've figured out that there's only one male.
there's a much worse dragon.
Right, there's some big bad dragon. There's only one male, and it fertilizes all the females. So if you could kill it, you could stop.
Yeah, then
Eventually,
they all die.
Then you could wait them out. Then it's acceptable. You could. So they revealed that plan, and then McConaughey has that draft. Where he just goes out and basically is going to like kidnap every able-bodied man.
Yeah, when they don't volunteer enough people, he decides he's going to draft.
He's like, just get the 6 strongest ones. Your guns cocking. You're like, oh, that's cool. Because it's not bad enough. That's every post-apocalypse too. I mean, I get it. Humans, man is always the worst thing out of all. The scariest villain is always man. But come on, there's dragons burning us down. You really got to put a gun to my head. I don't want to go out and die by a dragon. My whole life has been about not dying.
Well, and you know what? His crew ultimately prevailed. The group he kidnapped, they ultimately beat that male dragon, didn't they?
They all get burned immediately.
Not even on camera.
Nope.
Off camera.
And not only that, but again, in another instance of when you don't listen to Christian Bale, bad things happen. The dragon then tracks them back to the castle.
So then, Christian Bale misses both big fights. Yeah. Everyone's dead now.
Yeah, everyone's dead. They do manage to save the kids, though. Like, their plan because they get the kids into the bunker. So that's actually
true.
Works.
They did save the kids.
But they probably lose most of the adults.
Which is fine, because besides Gerard Butler, some of those guys were dicks, I felt like.
And they didn't have food to feed them anyway, so it's go ahead and
because
thin
it all
the herd.
got burned up. It all got burned up.
Time to thin the herd a little bit.
I like to think that Christian Bale showed up to save the food, and getting that guy was just like
just
a bonus mission. Like in a video game, it's like, if optional objective, save this guy and his family. NPC. Yeah, save him and his family. So yeah, I think that's what that was.
So then, since there's not really much else to do, Bale and McConaughey and the girl, the love interests, are basically the only ones left.
McConaughey says you're right.
Yeah, he does. He does come back and apologize. Yeah,
but also I have explosive arrow rounds,
and we do still need to go kill this thing.
You were right, and you're in charge.
There's even less of us now, but you can be in charge. So they go back to London for the big final showdown with the big dragon, and they come up with a stupid contrived reason to scare away all the other dragons, because there's like 20 or 30 dragons, and then they scare them away. But the one big one is left. They have their big final fight scene, and McConaughey gets that amazing 30-foot shirtless jump with a giant somewhere along the line, he picks up a medieval axe. Like, I swear he didn't have it when he got into the city of, like, did the path that Christian Bale took them on lead them through a museum? And he was like, oh, that's pretty sweet.
There we go. I think it was like a non-moment. We might even have seen it and just missed it. I bet, because I feel like it's something from the tunnels that he grabs. But yeah, you're right. He just, all of a sudden, this is his go-to weapon.
Right. It just feels like this whole movie, they were doing we're going to do the modern thing, we're not going to do medieval dragon. And at the very end, they're like, let's get that medieval axe in there.
Axe in there. Let's have him jump off a medieval looking tower.
Right, he basically looks like he's jumping off a turret, from a castle, and he's flying off.
You're
and
right.
He's got the crazy tribal tattoos. He looks like an ancient warrior. He looks
right,
because
his shirt's off at this point.
Of course.
But,
of course, McConaughey gets his shirt off.
And I didn't like that death either, man.
Yeah,
and it was another budget restriction. I felt like if you would have just shown him, like, maybe he catches it with the edge of that pike, and rides it for a while and does a little bit of damage and kind of wears it down just enough for Bale to finish it off.
Because it does go, like, he shoots it with the arrow, and it does get like a big burn on the side of its face. It takes a hit, but then it pretty much just gets McConaughey.
Well, let's talk about that girl real quick too, because she does not. There's a moment where they kind of make her seem upset, but it's more, I think, because she's not flying in this mission. She's on the ground, and it kind of doesn't suit her.
Right, she was the pilot. She was the helicopter pilot.
But even after she runs out in the middle of the street to draw the dragon to Matthew McConaughey, which he hits, and then there's this huge moment where, like, Christian Bale's, like, reaction is like, oh, and he's, like, startled, and he's, like, brought out of it by her, who's now in the middle of the street with a machine gun.
She just, like, runs across,
like, she's like, we're done, this thing's dead, get ready.
Like, hey, pay attention, it's crawling around right down here,
She's amazing, though. She's tough the whole time.
No, she's good.
Oh, yeah.
And then, it has a fairly hopeful ending for a post-apocalypse movie, you know.
They killed it. It worked out the way they planned.
They say it's been a while since they've seen the last one, but they're, they'll burn, we'll build. Right?
Yeah, and that was it. And they kind of had beaten the dragons.
Yeah.
They were pretty much all dying anyway. So everyone was right.
Mm-hmm.
And humanity lives on the way it should. Because Van Zandt had to die in that last moment because this world didn't need him anymore. Once we killed that dragon, his time was done, and Christian Bale's time to slide
Right,
in. You know what I
absolutely.
mean? So
Well, the world that like created that perfect killing machine that was Matthew McConaughey in this movie,
yeah,
that supposedly that's over now. So you
yeah.
don't need him. He can
You
go
don't want him
off.
hanging out in the
You need
bunker
a
at the
new-
castle,
no,
creeping
with-
people out.
Right, with nothing to. Can you imagine what that guy would be like with
In the
nothing
bar,
to do? Just like
starting fights.
drinking that 2-week
Yeah,
whiskey they
'cause
make.
the whiskey's not gonna stop. He drank that
No.
to get through the war.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right, man. He
So-
had to go.
So was there anything else that surprised you that you didn't remember that jumped out at you?
I didn't remember that he died when he jumped into the dragon. I totally
Right.
forgot what happened, and then I was like bummed out, and then I remembered that I was bummed out when I saw
When
the
you saw it the first time.
because I was like, ah, you had to die like that.
Yeah. And like I said, I think Gerard Butler was one of the big surprises for me because he's very like this is in that Dracula 2000 era. He's very lean. He's not all bulked up, but so like seeing him and kind of playing
He's
second
buff.
banana.
He looks good in this. Everybody looks really good in this.
Yeah,
Gerard Butler and
they all have
and
their
Christian
moments to
Bale.
like flex and like
Oh,
you know
yeah.
you
He's
come in
some
on
babe.
Christian Bale like. You know, he's digging out their hole.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
chiseling. So everybody's got their shirt off moments in this.
Everybody
one.
has
All
a
the
good
dudes
shirt off
anyway. All the
moment.
dudes anyway.
Yeah,
Come on,
it's a babe.
only-
It's a babe fest for sure.
Right.
Like
lots of oiled up pecs and whatnot.
yeah, which I thought was a nice touch.
So did it hold up? Like how does it compare to your memory?
I liked it. I like it the same. I felt like
still like
I
it.
really want to like it, and it's so close. There's two scenes. If they had just had more money and done like an action scene for the people that die, and shown maybe that battle where Matthew McConaughey, everybody like burns alive, and it's just like I just don't think they had the money to do it. But
right.
but I don't know. I thought it was still pretty awesome. Like,
I'm kind of in the same boat with you. Like I wish they could have followed through on the premise a little bit better because, like I said, I think everything is in that dragon hunting scene that this movie like really should have been. That's what this movie should have been about because that is sweet.
that part was awesome. It was just we
The
only got
rest
to
of
see
it's
it
kind
once.
of just a pretty decent monster movie.
Mhm.
Some things that I really liked, and you touched on it a little bit when they do the retelling of Star Wars
Oh
for the
my
kids.
God. So
You know,
perfect.
it's all the Black Knight and the White Knight, but they do the whole, they're basically reenacting the end of Empire, and I won't spoil it because I'm sure there's tons of people who don't know what happens in the end of Empire Strikes Back. But basically, they're retelling Star Wars for the little bright-faced,
and they love it.
yeah, the little kids, and they're giving those genuine English child reactions that only an English child can give.
Oh,
Where
it's so
they're
perfect.
so surprised, and their faces are so perfectly round and
Mhm.
white, and they're just like, oh, this
Yep.
is like.
And it's perfect, and that's where you first see that's one of the nicer moments. And I wrote down, man, am I really liking Bale a lot in this movie because he takes care of the kids. He's the leader. He felt bad for that guy after his family died, like those members of his family, even though he's the
Oh, yeah.
reason there's a dragon. He's like, oh man.
Right.
But
right. Even the guy,
that
like,
Star Wars scene for me was like, yeah, and he's Darth Vader in the Star Wars scene to
Right.
Gerard Butler,
Luke
Luke
plays
Skywalker.
and yeah,
Oh,
they're
it's
great.
so
in that.
great.
That's a great, and it's just a great little moment of like, that's what Christian Bale as a kid would basically remember. He probably hasn't had a lot of time to read books or anything since then. He's just got to go off of like what he saw as a kid because he's been
Yep.
too busy surviving and trying to rebuild the world. So, I really like the lookout. The guy who had the hawk, who was like their lookout. The hawk would fly
yeah,
around.
that guy.
But how much better would it have been if it was Tom Jones from Mars Attacks? The hawk
With
came
the
in
same
and landed,
Falcon?
same Falcon, and they just
Oh my
lets it out.
God.
And he's up there just singing when they have their party instead of like playing.
So great.
It's just
He
anything we
survived.
didn't like.
What I did not like was really just the way that the people died.
Yeah.
The way that Gerard Butler and Matthew McConaughey died. I just wanted something better. But I know it just bummed me out, and
I got
that was it.
Mine's not really. I don't think this is necessarily a dislike, but there's some really heavy accent work going on in this movie. Not just Bale, Gerard Butler, but also McConaughey's bringing his full Southern accent to play too.
Yeah, he's
like
using.
he's got a. But there are some points in this where Bale and Gerard Butler are talking to each other, and it's like snatch level of hard to
You don't know
understand.
what they're
Like where I'm
saying.
like,
yeah.
what was that?
What?
Like, what was that? There's Scottish and Welsh together, and they're just bringing it from both ends. I mean, it was a little. There was just a couple times where I was like, what was that? What?
Yeah,
I get
had
the
that.
gist. It's fine.
Yeah, I can tell by their cadence, like what they're trying to say to
Oh,
each
this is a
other.
serious
Dragons are
moment.
bad.
Dragons are bad. This is a
Don't
serious
think the food.
situation.
Yeah,
Sure.
you're absolutely right. There were a lot of acts. I think with McConaughey though, he's just got like a dial on his draw, and he just moves it up and down.
A little
And
bit.
I think he's got it up
How
pretty high.
southern am I today?
Yeah, it's like a 7.5 on the McConaughey southern
Okay,
draw.
so we like this, but obviously not everybody did. Not super
Not
well
a lot
remembered.
Of people. Not a lot of people.
I got some critics' reviews. How about some little snippets we can chat about here for a second?
All right.
Now, first I want to start out with a positive one. This is Ty Burr, Boston Globe, all right?
One of my many burner accounts for Rain of Fire. To talk about how great this movie
Now,
is.
I would say he gave this movie like a C+ overall.
Oh, really? That's
but
not mine,
here's
man.
a little snippet. This is quite enjoyable as a creature feature. Bale continues to demonstrate his curious under the radar appeal. As for McConaughey, let's just say a star is reborn. Suddenly that whole naked bongo playing incident makes a lot more sense. So is he saying that, like, now I understand his judgment is suspect and that's why he did this? Or
Oh, that does kind of sound like a backhanded
is it
slight.
like a little dig?
Yeah, I don't like that though, because why do you gotta take a shot at McConaughey? He gives the best performance in this movie.
More than Bale, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
See, I think Bale is a little subtler. He's a little hammy.
This is a world of dragons. There's no room for subtlety. That guy died years ago.
McConaughey hams it up, but in a great way. Like, I don't want to take anything away. I love the way McConaughey hams it up. But I think this guy hits it on the head.
That's the best review you found?
That's one of the top two. But I think he nails it as far as it's a great creature feature. It succeeds at what it attempts to be.
That's great.
I want to...
That's a great, man. I must love this movie more than anybody. I'm gonna write a review for real.
Here's Peter Travers from Rolling Stone.
Oh, you love this guy.
Let me see if you can tell if this is a positive or a negative review. So what's not to like? There's the bad CGI, the choppy pacing, the comically intense acting, the repetition, the dullness, and mostly the idiot plot about how there's only one male dragon and everything will be fine if they kill the big dick. What? Somebody get the hose and put this fire out. I don't think he was a fan. He hit the CGI. I think we talked about that. I think most of the CGI is pretty decent. I think there's a couple times it falters, but I think you could say that about movies right now,
It's true. Man, that guy really must have had a bad night
he didn't
watching
like
that.
it, did he?
I feel bad for him.
He did hit on the intense acting, but I think that's a plus. Like, even though I just called it hammy, I still think that's like a great, quotable and just passionate. Like,
this is him dialing it in, man. He's just a craft, okay? You get out of McConaughey's way. That's
you don't win an acting Oscar without taking some chances in your career and trying some things.
And he turned it up. He was looking for 7.1. He got up to like 7.7, and he's like, next time I'm gonna pull it just back, just
dial it down just a little bit.
And
when I'm thumping my chest in Wolf of Wall Street, I'll dial it down just a touch.
That's like a 7.1. He's like, I'm getting this, man. I'm getting this. That's exactly.
All right, so the next thing I want to do is a little thing I like to call the character corner, where we're going to try to shine a light on some lesser-known actors or some people who popped out at us in the movie but had smaller roles. Who'd you like in this?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I don't know if we get a whole lot, but he touched me at the beginning and made me start to go on the Christian Bale train that I was on was the young Quinn. Ben Thornton, the kid who gets
put in a dangerous situation.
Because it seems to me that he's not uncomfortable at all. He's all quippy with the adults. Every adult he meets with, he's got something funny to say.
Well, that's part of the Quinn qualifiers that they keep going into when you see adult Christian Bale and how he's smarter than everybody. Like every adult he interacts with, he's always smarter than them. He always one-ups them. He's always got a quip.
It's true. He's actually smarter than most of these adults. He survives somehow, so obviously.
Right, he's Newt.
But he has some great. Yeah, he's the Newt of the movie, and then it goes on to be the savior of everyone too. So he's also the Newt and the Ripley of this movie.
Yeah, absolutely, he is. Good for him, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, so he runs it. But this kid, his mom asks. There's 2 cigarette jokes. There's 2 no smoking ads in here. If you missed it, the one adult asks him, "Do you need a cigarette?" And he says, "No, I told you I'm trying to cut back." Then his mom smells him and says, "Are you smoking?" He says, "I only smoke when I drink."
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, come on, don't smoke, kids. But he did good. He was real quick, and then that was it. He was only in it for maybe 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, but it's an important 5 minutes.
Yeah, it sets you up to
Because
like
he has,
him.
well, and he has to play young Bruce Wayne basically and see his mom die.
Yeah,
and all
good
that.
reaction shot by him when he does that. What about you, Brian? Who did you love in this one?
This one was hard because I'm usually real. I love character actors and I love picking them out. But this I think had a lot of English and British actors,
Yeah.
and maybe if I watched more BBC television, I'd recognize some of these people. But
there's like 4 people from Downton Abbey in this cast or something.
I've seen Sherlock, but I didn't pay attention to a lot of the background characters. I'm not a Doctor Who guy,
Yeah.
so. But I did pick out. I have to say, okay, I'm just gonna put it all on the table. I IMDb'd this one. This is an IMDb pick for me, but I was shocked by it, so I wanted to throw it out for Character Corner. One of the uncredited children in this is Jack Gleason. Now, I am not a fan of Game of Thrones. I don't watch that show. I mean, I'm sure it's good. I shouldn't say I'm not a fan. I just don't watch it. I hear it's great. But he's Joffrey, the much hated Joffrey on Game of Thrones. So he was probably one of the little kids praying, doing the little dragon prayer.
I kind of want to go back and see which one is Joffrey.
Which one he is. I bet he looks like a little Weasley shitbag.
Oh my God! As we dive back into medieval times, thus begins the story of Westeros.
Right.
And this
That's
young
what you
boy...
don't know. This is actually a prequel to Game of Thrones.
There's a lot more history to Game of Thrones, Brian, that this movie doesn't encapsulate. Okay.
Let's get into the final segment, where we determine, was this a goodbye, as in my money was well spent, or goodbye, get this out of here. And I think we already know this ain't going nowhere, except maybe back into the DVD player for another watch.
Perhaps a new cellophane case to slide it into to prevent damage.
Do they make bags and boards for DVD cases
somebody
now?
At least there's a warehouse somewhere of a failed company that tried to make those. Yeah, I think you definitely. I don't know what you spent. What do you think you got this for? What do you think? Was this day one purchase?
This was probably a day one purchase in 2003. Whenever this got released. I probably paid full price for this.
So it was probably 15. What do you think? The week 15?
It came out, usually catch a break. They're usually on sale. The regular DVD price in these days would have been $20, but 20? it was probably on sale opening first week. So probably like maybe $16.99.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So thanks for joining us on the DVD Bunker. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the Unofficial Fan Fights channel. Lots of good content. These guys are making me look bad. They're churning out a ton of content.
Yeah,
Fan Friction is like going up weekly. Odd Panel's going up weekly. Not so much. We're just starting out.
We're turning this into challenge accepted. We're turning this into a 4-night-a-week event. With different themes every night of the week. There's going to be a different movie theme. So that way you're like, I hate sci-fi. I hate horror. That's fine. We got you. We got rom-com.
We're going to do comedy. We're going to do
comic
drama.
Book movies. Fantasy. Whatever you want. Documentaries. It's whatever.
Challenge accepted, Odd Shape Panel. The gauntlet has been thrown down. You can find us.
My friend.
You can find us on Twitter at Hurst
and at the Drunksman.
Hashtag us DVD Bunker. Be sure to anything we missed, or if you're a fan of Reign of Fire, tell us your favorite moments. Talk to us about it.
I'd love to hear that.
We had a great time. Also, I want to thank a good friend of ours, Ronald Folger. He provided the music. It was we didn't know we were going to get some great jams.
Those are jams
for the intro and for our transitions.
Yeah, those are great.
And Google-Eyed Platypi, I believe, is the name of his band.
Great name.
Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed listening through. I listened through it like 2 or 3 times when I was like doing the music. So I was like, "It's good, man. It's a jam."
Yeah. It's
good I'm gonna add some lyrics though and send them to you, Ron. Like
musicians
like Eddie
really.
Vedder
I think
Pearl Jam. Yeah.
I've heard the musicians like unsolicited music sent to them and lyrics to the songs they wrote.
That's fine. Get ready for a raspy, sort of.
You got a real Bob Dylan thing.
I can do whatever. I can go anywhere, anytime, whatever you need. Yeah, big range.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.